welcome to today's segment on leveraging the Federal Youth Network Ecosystem. Bienvenue et bonjour à la séance d'aujourd'hui sur le parti de l'écosystème du réseau des jeunes fonctionnaires fédéraux. Je me nomme Rejoignez Racine, je suis conseillère en ressources humaines à Emploi et Développement social Canada et l'une des coprésidentes d'étudiants GC, le réseau des étudiants sous le réseau des jeunes fonctionnaires fédéraux. Mes pronoms sont elle, she, eux et je vous rejoins de la région de la capitale nationale qui est le territoire non cédé des peuples algonquins Anishinaabe. My name is Rejoignez Racine. I am an HR advisor at Employment and Social Development Canada and one of the co-chair of GC Student, that network for students under the Federal Youth Network. I will begin by acknowledging that I'm here on the traditional and ceded territory of the Algonquian Anishinaabe people. The Algonquian people have lived on this land since time immemorial, and I encourage you all to acknowledge the land you are on as well. Au fur et à mesure qu'on va progresser dans la séance d'aujourd'hui, veuillez partager vos questions en utilisant le bouton de questions et réponses, donc le Q et A, dans la langue de votre choix. Vous pouvez voter pour les questions que vous voulez poser en cliquant sur le bouton du petit pouce en l'air, le thumbs up. Today, we have three panelists joining us. I would like to welcome Jennifer McDougall, Marcela Popovich, and Marc-André Leblanc. Each of them have prepared a presentation for today. Before we begin, please share with us a little bit about your own career journey and how you came to be part of the public service. So, Jen, on peut débuter avec toi?
Absolument. Alors, je m'appelle Jennifer McDougall. Je suis présentement une des agents libres de la programme des agents libres du Canada. Puis, je travaille en affectation avec le Réseau des jeunes fonctionnaires fédéraux comme gestionnaire principal des événements et des partenariats. Puis, si tu me demandes comment je suis rendue dans la fonction publique, je ne sais pas vraiment. C'était un peu par accident. Puis, mes premiers postes étaient pas exactement ce que je cherchais. Alors, j'ai traversé plusieurs chemins pour arriver à la place que je suis présentement. Alors, j'ai essayé plusieurs différents niveaux de travail et différents types de travail et j'ai resté tout le long dans la région. Alors, j'ai beaucoup de choses à vous partager à propos de la collaboration puis le réseautage de la région avec la programmation du RCN.
Merci, Jen. Marcela?
Hi, everyone. So I'm joining you from Winnipeg, Manitoba. I started my career many years ago, actually. And I've been mostly with the Canada Revenue Agency, actually, for all of my career. I had a beautiful kind of blip in that where I was part of the Federal Youth Network as the virtual event manager. And so that's kind of what I'm going to speak a little bit about later today. But you know what? I just want to let you know that I started off in operations, in the tax center, working the tax forms, because then we were still getting paper. And I was a term employee. I moved into a perm employee after a number of years. And then I went into HR, into management, and then back into HR. So I share that with you to let you know that there is progression possible if you're new to the public service. And so, and that's what we're going to talk a little bit about today, how you navigate all the resources that are available to you to make that possible. And one of the things that I'm very passionate about now is equity, diversity, and inclusion. And so that's part of the work that I'm doing now in the CRA, but it's sort of the parts that I also brought to the Federal Youth Network when I was with them.
Merci Marcela, je ne savais pas que tu avais autant d'expérience dans différents domaines. C'est une nouvelle information pour moi. Le dernier, non le moindre, Marc-André.
Merci Audrey-Anne, ça me fait plaisir de vous rejoindre aujourd'hui à partir du territoire traditionnel non cédé des Mi'kmaq ici à Moncton par une belle journée ensoleillée. Ça explique pourquoi mon rideau est fermé parce que sinon il y avait tellement de lumière, vous ne verriez pas. Happy to be here. As Jen was saying, I'm also, well, not that she was saying that, but I'm also a free agent as Jen is. So I joined the free agent program not so long ago. Je suis quand même assez nouveau, moi aussi, dans la fonction publique pour mon côté. J'ai joint la fonction publique en octobre septembre-octobre 2019. Donc, pour moi, toutes ces ressources-là, c'est tout ce qui se passe à l'intérieur du gouvernement du Canada, c'est quoi qui m'a surpris dans l'arrivée de ma carrière, de comprendre et de connaître qu'il y a autant de ressources. Puis c'est un peu ça que je vais démystifier avec vous aujourd'hui, c'est un peu vous montrer où on peut trouver ces ressources-là pour nous accompagner au niveau du développement de notre carrière, parce que bien souvent, si vous avez des questions, les ressources existent. Le plus difficile des fois, c'est de les trouver. Mais j'espère que la session d'aujourd'hui, puis le rôle que joue le Réseau des jeunes fonctionnaires fédéraux on saura vous guider dans ça, puis vous aider tous et toutes dans le développement de votre carrière. So, a pleasure to be with you all.
Merci beaucoup, Marc-André. J'aimerais maintenant commencer par demander à Jen, en fait. Jen, j'aimerais savoir qu'est-ce que ça veut dire travailler dans un monde ouvert. Peux-tu nous expliquer un peu ce concept-là?
Absolument, Andréane. Puis c'est un peu compliqué. Ça ne devrait pas l'être, mais on travaille dans la fonction publique, alors tout est compliqué. Si vous êtes au courant des initiatives de au-delà de 2020 et aussi des normes numériques, so we're talking about beyond 2020 and the digital standards, those two documents guide the work that we were working towards and the way we were supposed to be working into the future of work. I would say that the pandemic actually got us there faster, because we were forced to pivot and innovate and explore new ways of doing things. And for us at FYN, we're no different in that we weren't really sure what we were going to do when the pandemic first started, but we knew that we should do it in the open. So when we're talking about working in the open, it has to do with sharing the information that you have, keeping it on platforms that other people can access, sharing your best practices. I think what's really interesting about the expression that knowledge is power, yes, but you have to share that knowledge with other people, because we were gaining knowledge at a rapid pace. And I'm sure Marcella is the one who will be able to speak most to that. We were gaining tons of knowledge about how to deliver online products, where to store them, how to load them, how to share them. But our partners weren't necessarily as progressing as quickly as we were, because we were taking a lot of risks and we were constantly innovating and iterating. And we were doing that completely in the open so that others could learn from our experiences, so that not everyone across the system, the entire enterprise of the GC, so that everybody wouldn't have to start from scratch. Alors, c'est vraiment partager ses connaissances, partager ses ressources, partager les défis, partager les meilleures pratiques que vous avez, collaborer avec les autres. C'est vraiment un esprit d'ouverture. Ça va vous donner beaucoup plus que ça va vous coûter.
Merci, c'est tellement bien dit, Jen. On apprend tellement beaucoup des autres aussi, puis les ressources sont déjà là. C'est le fun de collaborer. Marcella, can you explain the origin of the Federal Youth Network ecosystem and why you choose to work in the open by sharing everything that you created?
Yeah, so, you know, the pandemic happened, and Jen put it this very gently, but her and Josh really created this vision for FYN, in that we were going to take all of that learning online. And what did that look like? We had to learn really quickly. We had to learn MS Teams. Then we went to Zoom. Then we had a brief blip back to MS Teams. So it was important for us to kind of share that experience as we were going through it with others, to one, keep everyone engaged, and to also, as Jen kind of said, to show that we can do this, that we can be learning in the open together and share both our failures, but all the failures that also are leading to how to do it better, right? So that was, and why we're talking about this today is also, I wanted to kind of center, when I was looking at the questions for today, part of what we're talking today is about the FYN ecosystem. And just as for all of you who are attending today, it's important for you to understand that every time we're putting a product out there, we're thinking about a lot of these different moving pieces that are happening in the public service. So we're considering, we're always doing pulse checks, like the whole team. And I'm not really part of the team anymore. I'm an honorary team member, let's say, an alumni, but you know, like one of the things that we were doing, and that I know that the team is doing pulse checks with our colleagues, with the networks. We're checking what's on social media. We're checking to see what are the new trends or what are some re-emerging trends, and kind of speaking to those pieces in our VLS and in the career boot camp. We're also, you know, looking at the wide picture of diversity and inclusion, and what does this look like for us? And so those are some of the pieces that we baked into our whole process in the Federal Youth Network. We baked into it like making sure that we had diverse panel. We baked into it that we had regional perspectives. We baked into it that we were providing content that public servants wanted and needed. And so those are the pieces that really the 2-year journey and all that stuff that Josh and Jen bring with it, right? Because they've been longer with Federal Youth Network, is what when we're talking about the ecosystem is important to keep in mind, because we are really trying to provide content that's going to be important for young, for new, and for public servants that are wanting a career change. And so I'm going to dive into my PowerPoint, if that's okay. Right now, Adriana, and we're going to just talk a little bit more about this ecosystem. And I welcome all of you to really ask questions in the Q&A or use the chat space. This is the next kind of hour you have. You know, I'm going to let you know, Jen is a phenomenal resource that you have right now at your resource at your disposal right now. So I'm just going to, I'm going to share my screen.
While Marcella's sharing her screen, I think it's important to note that as we were creating those products, creating things in the open means that you don't really own them anymore. And I think for a lot of people, that's a concern of theirs. When I was saying that knowledge is power, some people want to lock their stuff behind their firewall and password protect it so other people can't share it. And we knew the risks of putting things out there that people were going to take it, but we want people to take it. So if you don't take away anything else, you can take these things and you can turn them into your own. You can take them and share them on Facebook. You can take them and share them with your friends who are applying to get into government. You can do whatever you want with them, because that's part of the spirit of working in the open, is that we acknowledge that we no longer own that content, that we're giving it to be shared.
Exactly. And to improve it and make it work for your area, your network, your department. And that's part of the beautiful pieces that, you know, FYN really does in the part of the openness, as Jen's speaking to. So I'm just going to dive into the FYN ecosystem. And you can see that I'm presenting in the PowerPoints in French. I'm speaking in English, but it's going to be available to you. This is another thing FYN does, is, you know, we do it in both languages. So the PowerPoint is going to be available on the wiki page in both English and in French. So today, we have 4 learning objectives, right? We're going to talk about the different resources that FYN has available to you. We're going to talk about the multiple platforms a little bit. Marc-André is going to do that after my quick presentation here. We're going to talk about that individual learning program and how to use these resources that FYN has. And as you can see, I use my hands a lot. And objective number 4 is we're going to talk about that sharing piece. So I'm going to do a little quick walkthrough of the FYN ecosystem, what that looks like. But I've put it in the PowerPoint here. So these are the kind of the different components for a quick review. And if you're going back to your team, because your team leader is giving you this 1 hour to attend, this is a PowerPoint that you can quickly review at a team meeting to say, these are the resources available, go ahead and explore. Again, you're taking that next step of sharing, just like we've shared all of the resources with you. So I'm going to stop sharing my PowerPoint and open up the FYN wiki page to kind of just do a quick walk through, and we're trying to engage you in different ways. And there we go. Okay, so if you've been on our wiki page a number of times, you know that this is kind of what we started off with, and this is still our landing page, but Alexa has been working really hard at again, reiterating and making a better and better product each time, right? Based on the feedback that we hear from our attendees and from our networks, our colleagues, and even within the team itself. So you're going to see 4 different banners, which is the event banner, career resources, mentorship, and then a little bit about us. Under the event banners, where you're going to see a lot about the virtual learning series, which is where I was really involved in over the last 2 years. And if you go into that, you're going to get a few more choices around events, which is VLS, as I call it, Career Bootcamp, and other GC events, which is coming soon. So the VLS, you're going to be able to go in here, and let's say that you're looking for, conference, you want to take your growth is now, you're thinking, man, I need to improve my, I apologize about that. I need to take my career, and I want to learn about what it means to have transferable skills. So you can go to the recording, watch Vanessa, Kim, and Joshua, and they're going to talk about what transferable skills, what does that mean? And they're all 3 of them are from the Canada School of Public Servant. They were panelists that we invited. And so you can kind of build on that skill, right? Or learn about it, learn a little bit more about what that looks like. There's another piece of the wiki site now that I really like is that the team put this resources where they kind of built these main topics. And if you want to talk a little bit more, you want to learn about interviewing or improve that skill for yourself, you're going to click on that and you're going to see all in one place, all of the different kinds of resources that either FYN created, that our panelists shared with us, or that the FYN team has kind of vetted and said, hey, this is a great resource that we need to share with all of public servants. And so they've put it into a handy little pieces here for you to have a quick reference to. So, and I know we get lots of questions around interviews, we get lots of questions around networking. And so another piece that is kind of from the original homepage, and I believe that if I go here, sorry, they still have the old stuff, which is great because you can kind of really see how we've progressed, right? And so if you go down here, one of the pieces that I really liked, especially if you're new to the public service, is this kind of bottom piece here around how to build my networking, right? Like your formal networks, your informal networks, and we kind of let's say what the FYN team thought were people that as a new public servant are worth following because they're either saying interesting things about the public service or they're saying interesting things about their career, which could kind of help guide you around, oh, maybe I want to work for Transport Canada. Maybe I want to go work for Mel Copeland. And, you kind of, those are some pieces that you can take in both the archived FYN resources and in the new FYN resources. Does anybody want to jump in? Am I okay with time here? Yeah,
I think I was just going to add a little bit, Marcella, in case you needed to take a quick breath, that list isn't exhaustive. Nothing we have is exhaustive, and it's always ever changing. And we don't always have time or remember to update it. So when we originally created that, just by looking at it quickly, that doesn't have all of the networks that are in the GC because so many networks have popped up over the last couple of years. And the same thing with the influencers that we identified. Yes, those people are still trendy to follow, but I'm sure there's so many more that we've uncovered since the time that we created that. And that's part of what's great about working in the open is that anyone can update that. So if you yourself think that you're a GC influencer or you yourself are leading up a network, you are welcome and able to go in and update that yourself because anyone in the GC can go in and update any of the GC tools.
Exactly. And that is it's a great, I would say it's a great starting point though. And I always point people out who are asking me, well, where do I start with Twitter? Where do I start with LinkedIn? Who do I follow? There are some people there that you can kind of start following and then see who they're following. Who are they having conversations with, right? So it's just a starting point. And like Jen said, you can always, there's a ton more people. I think in the last career bootcamp, we saw an enormous amount of kind of public servants really shine in terms of the panelists that we had, that we could probably add to that list, right? So another piece that I believe, Jen, correct me if I'm wrong, you're going to be speaking to the mentorship piece later on this month in a separate segment. Yeah, so I'm not going to go too much into that section. I'm going to leave it as a little like tease there, that you're going to want to make sure to attend the mentorship segment, because mentoring is a very important part of your career journey and of your learning plan. And, you know, there's a difference between mentoring and coaching, and the VLS, the career bootcamp. We've had a number of different discussions around that, and a number of different resources exist for you to explore further. So one of the challenges for you today, that I'm saying to you, is take some time, take 10 minutes to explore the FYN Wiki page. And one of the best pieces that I love that Alexa really added is this feedback button here. An easy way to kind of provide some feedback as to, hey, I was looking for more information around this, and it could even influence perhaps, what the team presents in a future VLS. So that feedback button is really important, and it really helps us to improve the site and the products that we're putting out there.
Moi, je suis tellement une grande fan de tout ce que FYN fait. Puis aussi, tantôt, Marcella, tu parlais des comptes Twitter, mais aussi sur toutes les publications que vous faites sur Twitter. Je trouve que c'est intéressant quand vous taguez des personnes, d'aller les suivre, puis d'aller faire son réseau de contacts. Tellement des belles ressources, là. J'adore. Est-ce que vous avez... Do you have something else to add?
I just have a quick couple of little slides left. I totally have forgotten how to switch between screens, so I'm gonna have to stop sharing.
Take your time. I just want to remind you that if you have any question, you can write your question in the Q&A. Donc, si vous avez des questions, n'hésitez pas à écrire dans la partie de questions et réponses.
Okay. There we go. There, and so then. Just the quick pieces on the individual learning plan, because that was one of the learning objectives for today. So, and this is partially what I've learned through my 20 years that I've been with the public service, but also what I learned from the people in the VLS in the career bootcamp. These are kind of the three components that I think about when I'm building my own learning goals and my own learning kind of plan, and things that I would have talked to with Josh when he was my manager when I was with the Federal Youth Network. So that self-reflection is incredibly important. We have a VLS, that talks about emotional intelligence. We had a super interesting conversation with, it was Steph Percival, and I can't remember the rest, in career bootcamp. So you want to make sure that and they provided a ton of great resources around how to build those kind of goals for yourself and about self-reflection. You want to take a moment to see, where am I right now? What skill set do I have right now? And honor that. And then you want to also think about, okay, where do I want to go? When I joined the CRA, I mean, it was incredible. I wanted to be director right away, but obviously that wasn't going to happen right away. So what were the steps, right? So kind of like really looking around my department and kind of seeing, okay, well, this is what, this is what the hierarchy is. This is kind of the natural flow of me moving up, if that's what I was interested in. And so what are the skills that I need to do that? And then, and again, I put their FYN learning plan resources. So we have those resources under the resource tab. So take a look at that, involve others, talk to your colleagues, and hopefully all of us have that one person that can give us some honest feedback about, what maybe some of the things that we need to improve on, right? Or what is something that we shine at. Talk to your manager. That's extremely important. And in a lot of the VLS and career bootcamp conversations, for some people, this can be quite difficult. So again, take a look at those recordings and see what other experts, people who are sharing their wisdom in those recordings, are saying about how to approach your manager. reach out to someone that you see on the VLS. And this is another challenge for you. Like if there's someone that you admire in the next, after I challenged, my first challenge was to check out the wiki page. And if there's a recording and there's someone who's really interesting to you, reach out to them. The one thing that I've learned when I was with Federal Youth Network is that almost all public servants are willing to take 10 minutes to meet up with you and kind of talk about their own career progression or some of the pitfalls. And so, yeah, be brave, be that person that does that, and check out the mentoring and coaching event that's coming up and all of the resources that exist. The other piece is, check out the FYN's mentorship, check out the pages, check out the recordings, and that there's a lot of resources. Sorry, that was a bit of a repeat there. And then I'm going to leave you with this final challenge. Share what you've learned today. Take the time to share with one person what you learned today, or if possible, take it to a team meeting. A lot of team leaders are open to you kind of sharing what your learning is in a 5-minute kind of presentation. Pick an area of improvement. We all need to improve on something. We're not perfect at everything. Pick one specific piece and then check out the FYN Wiki page, see where you can kind of start that journey of improvement, and pick a date to check in with yourself. So put something in your calendar, maybe 3 months down the road, to say, I'm going to check in with myself to see whether I accomplished this learning goal, whether I started it, etc. And just put it in your calendar to set yourself as a reminder. And then the fourth piece that I challenge you is to ask for honest feedback and to be open to that feedback. It's hard to ask for feedback sometimes, but it's the best way to learn about ourselves, about the things that we're really good at, and about the things that we could improve at. And there's always something that we can improve in. So don't take it as a personal failure. Just take it as a challenge for yourself to improve on, but you have to be open to that. So that's my little presentation for today.
Merci beaucoup, Marcella. Tellement des belles ressources. C'est tellement... Moi, je le dis tout le temps, je suis tellement une grande fan du Réseau des jeunes fonctionnaires fédéraux. Ça a tellement des belles ressources à partager avec tout le monde. Je vais juste rappeler, si vous avez des questions, vous pouvez écrire dans le petit onglet là, Q&A, donc questions et réponses. If you have any question, you can write in the Q&A section, so we will be able to ask your question to the panelists. Marc-André, can you share how you are using existing content to create new learning possibilities?
Well, I think it's the whole concept of working in the open right there, is to retake that content and adjust it to our need, adjust it to l'actualité, utiliser le contenu pour répondre aux besoins qu'on a. And Jen was mentioning that at the start, but don't hesitate to go on you might be a team leader here listening today, and go steal our content, use it for your department, adjust it, change it. Ça fait vraiment partie de ce concept-là qu'on essaie de mettre en valeur ici au Réseau des jeunes fonctionnaires fédéraux, mais aussi une autre chose que je me permets d'ajouter à ça, puis une chose qui est que de travailler dans un esprit ouvert nous permet de faire, c'est d'amener le côté humain. Tout à l'heure, tous les ressources qu'on met en œuvre, souvent, ils sont beaucoup plus humaines que peut-être qu'est-ce qu'on va voir ailleurs au gouvernement du Canada, ou est-ce qu'on va tout le temps mettre le monsieur Jean Tremblay de John Smith case that will be in the example, etc. It's something we try here at FYN to go over in a different way, just to show you an example as I share my screen. And I actually close that window, so I'll show you how to find the example. If you go from our start screen and you go, I'll go en français as I speak in English, and you go through our resources. One of the resources that we have on our website is actually example of resumes that are there. And these are not John Smith. They're actual public servant. That's their actual resume in different kind of format, all useful throughout the GCs. So that's another thing that I think we try to bring forward with the Federal Youth Network network, our ecosystem, is to have these real people, there's real talk, this human side of things that sometimes we don't see as much through our department learning activities, etc. D'ailleurs, là, je vais vous donner une exclusivité qui parle un peu de ce côté humain qu'on essaie d'amener au réseau des jeunes fonctionnaires fédéraux. Une chose que les plus attentifs auront peut-être remarqué sur notre nouvelle page titre, que j'apprends moi-même à naviguer, c'est qu'il y a un bel petit icône ici dessous de podcast, parce qu'on est en train de vous préparer un tout nouveau podcast au réseau des jeunes fonctionnaires fédéraux. Ça s'appelle FYN Unscripted, RJFF sans fil. You can already subscribe on Spotify. The other platforms are coming up shortly. There's a little preview there. Actually, we recorded the first aspect of that, or the first episode of that podcast yesterday. It's not live yet. It's coming up in the next couple of weeks. But I decided that it would be fun maybe today to have a little sneak peek of our new podcast that I think will bring a more human side to things. So our first episode is on mentorship, and I'll just play the clip for now, and I'll speak to it a little bit more in a second.
And if you want to be a mentor from the other perspective, I think people sometimes feel that I don't have enough experience, so I'm not sure if I can give guidance to individuals on mentorship. On things that people may be interested in. I think, as individuals, whether you're a leader or not, I think you have certain skills and abilities that you can share with others. I started, when I was a kid in school, I used to help kids with their math. That's where probably my mentorship started from. and my
so as you can see, and as you heard, yesterday we had the chance to talk with Christian, Vince, and Emily about mentorship, but they all brought their own story to the table. Vince, that has been up to ADM, I do believe, in his career, 30-something years in the public service. He was sharing how he was a mentor, where it all started, as you heard, but all, comme en français on dirait, avec des gens qui parlent au je et qui ne parlent pas nécessairement au nom de ressources de l'entreprise, etc. Ça, c'est quelque chose de nouveau qui s'en vient pour vous au réseau des jeunes fonctionnaires fédéraux qui, je pense, va peut-être amener un côté encore, comme je le disais, plus humain à la chose. Mais ça ne s'arrête pas là. On l'a mentionné à quelques reprises, mais un des secrets peut-être les moins bien gardés de qu'est-ce qu'on fait et dans l'écosystème de FYN. Oui, il y a toutes nos ressources, mais ces ressources-là, comme la session d'aujourd'hui, qui d'ailleurs, dans quelques instants, une fois qu'on termine, ils se retrouvent sur YouTube. Depuis environ 1 an ou 2, depuis le début de la Virtual Learning Series, la série d'apprentissage virtuel, on met les vidéos sur YouTube. Ce qui veut dire que n'importe quel fonctionnaire, vous, vos collègues qui sont intrigués par un sujet en particulier, il y a probablement déjà une session comme celle-ci que vous pouvez écouter au moment que vous voulez, qui est liée à des ressources que vous pouvez trouver, que vous pouvez partager, que vous pouvez couper, réutiliser un extrait dans la réunion d'équipe. Donc, ça, c'est des ressources qui sont là pour vous, comme la session d'aujourd'hui le sera dans quelques instants. Également, une autre chose là, on vous donne beaucoup de choses, puis on vous le dit, ça évolue, ça change le réseau des jeunes fonctionnaires fédéraux. Comment savoir quand ça change? Bien, ça, c'est nos médias sociaux. On peut nous trouver sur les médias sociaux, vous les connaissez. Mais dans la fonction publique, là, on va arrêter de se faire des cachettes. Twitter est probablement la place où vous allez retrouver le plus de fonctionnaires qui discutent de choses intéressantes. FYN, donc le réseau des jeunes fonctionnaires fédéraux, est sur Twitter et c'est là qu'on va vous partager nos dernières ressources, nos derniers travaux, etc. Donc, même si vous ne voulez pas parler sur Twitter, juste bookmarquez la page, prenez un signet de la page de FYN et allez la voir une fois de temps en temps. C'est là que vous allez apprendre les dernières activités, les dernières ressources. Puis, c'est là qu'aussi, vous pouvez nous demander différentes questions, nous proposer des sujets, parce que c'est un peu ça le travail qu'on fait, c'est qu'on écoute, on se développe, et ça fait que parfois, tout n'est pas parfait dans ce qu'on publie. Sometimes we do mistakes. That's part of working in the open, but we still share those resources because we want people to learn as we're learning. We want to make those resources accessible as soon as we can, that help accessible as we can, so that all public servants throughout the country can go and grow their career with our resources and try to answer those questions that they might have throughout. So there's a lot to see, there's a lot to learn, but I hope that you can see FYN as a human side of your learning throughout the GC. And I'll reiterate on this point, put it in your learning plan. We are in the PMA season. Prenez ça et allez voir nos ressources, mettez ça dans vos objectifs d'apprentissage. Des ressources qui sont là, qui sont gratuites, so votre manager va être vraiment content, vous leur coûtez pas cher en formation, puis utilisez-les, puis profitez-en au maximum. Donc, Audrey-Anne, je te retourne la parole.
Merci, merci Merci Marc-André. J'ai vraiment hâte d'écouter ça, ce podcast-là. Ça va être le fun en travaillant des belles ressources,
Oui, puis avec le retour au bureau aussi qui s'en vient, on voulait quelque chose qui peut-être, tu sais, qui peut s'écouter le matin en allant dans l'autobus, peut-être qu'il n'y a pas nécessairement un PowerPoint. Là. Tu sais, c'est vraiment des gens qui parlent du cœur, qui parlent de leur carrière, etc. Donc, on a hâte.
C'est vraiment une bonne idée, Jen, je voulais savoir si tu veux nous parler un petit peu plus peut-être de comment les équipes peuvent travailler aussi ouvertement comme le fait FYN. Est-ce que tu voulais ajouter un peu plus d'infos là-dessus? How can my team can work in the open like FYN?
Absolument. Alors, premièrement, il faut que vous êtes au courant des initiatives comme au-delà de 2020, puis aussi des normes numériques. And the reason that you should be up to date on Beyond 2020 and on the digital standards is because that's how you can justify to your team when you're taking those risks, when you're iterating, when you're collaborating, when you're sharing outside your silo. There are still a lot of leaders who are very risk averse. They want to do things the way that we've always done them. They aren't sure they want to take that risk. They want to have a meeting to talk about if that's still a risk. Then they want to report. But what you need to be able to say is like, look at these digital standards that are from the top saying these are the things that we are supposed to be doing. Can we just talk about why we can't do it? Like, is there anything that you see as an obstacle? And so for us, we were fortunate. And I don't take that for granted. We were fortunate in our leadership. Josh was willing to kind of let us iterate and try things. We launched a lot of MVPs, which if you're familiar with the terminology is a minimally viable product. The virtual learning series was a minimally viable product. The first launch we did, we weren't sure it was gonna really work. We had asked our friends and partners to be speakers. It was mostly our friends and partners who were the audience in the beginning because we hadn't really gotten the word out, and we changed every single day. So we would meet before the session, figure out how things were going to go. We would have the session, we would meet after the session and figure out how to pivot. And we were learning as we were going. If you've been with the government for a long time, I'm sure that you have seen our analysis paralysis on some files where we think and think and think and think and think, and we try to make everything perfect. And it takes so long that by the time it's released, it's not even relevant anymore. And we didn't want that to happen to us. We wanted to try to release things in a timely fashion. And we saw the opportunity of the pandemic and people working from home and having varied workloads as an opportunity for them to take their career into their own hands, and we could provide them with resources. We didn't want to wait and release something. Probably it would only be now if we had waited for all of the proper things to be in place, the perfect website, the perfect coding, the perfect platform, all the perfect supports. But instead of trying to be perfect, we just tried to be useful. And that's really what the evolution of the GC is about. And if you have been around long enough for Blueprint 2020, then you know that we were always heading in this direction to try to be flexible and agile and to work outside of our departments and outside of the norms. But we weren't really sure how that was going to happen. These things help to guide us and justify the work that we're doing. So have real discussions with people on your team and say, okay, well, what's the worst that can happen if we do this? Like, what are you scared of? And when they come up with, okay, well, what if this happens? Say, okay, well, what if that happens? So in our case, What if someone has our PowerPoint? Good for them. They can have our PowerPoint. There's no risk. So we don't have anything classified or anything protected. There was no risk in our case. And so in your department, you really need to assess what's the risk to the faith that Canadians have in the public service, the risk to protected information and data. If you're in a highly sensitive environment, it's different. But if you're working with your YPN, your youth network, if you're developing a lunch and learn and it's for your colleagues and there's nothing protected, then there's minimal risk. And so just try to think about why you're doing what you're doing and what are the risks, and talk to your management and use the terminology that's in those governing documents to support why you want to take those smart risks.
Yeah, and there's a question in the Q&A about that too, Jen, around the security, right? And so, of course, those are some things that we won't be able to get around because there's potentially Privacy Act, right, into play. So we can't get around that. But I think what Jen is saying is we need context. Like in terms of what we are doing wasn't a huge security risk. We could share everything that we were creating in FYN. Not all government departments and not all work that you're doing can be shared openly, but it's worth sometimes just that conversation and kind of raising like, well, is this something that I can share with so-and-so in this other department who's working on a similar project? And it's, I think more than anything is really also starting that conversation and being sometimes brave enough to launch that and to just say, well, can we do this differently? How can we do this differently? And that's part of also, I think, working in the open. Jen?
And what you touched on is really important, Marcella, because for us, the risk was very minimal in that we didn't have anything that was protected. But there were certain things that we did actually keep protected. And those things, the link goes back inside the firewall. So we have most of our things, like Marc-Andre was talking about, like we have a lot of things on YouTube. So there's nothing on YouTube that's secret. If ever we have something that needs to be kept for GC audience only, then it has to go inside the firewall. But you can share it inside the GC with only federal public servants. So then the question is, okay, well, who are you sharing it with? So if Marcella is designing a lunch and learn for her team, well, is it only for her team? Is it only for CRA? Is it only for the public service, or is it open for everyone? And those are the tiers of risk that you can assess. So I challenge everyone to at least try to break down the silos of your department, because department to department to department, we're all reinventing the same wheels in a lot of cases. And so if we can at least help each other in that respect and keep it inside the firewall, that's fine. You don't need to be doing what FYN is doing, which is really completely in the open, but at least taking down the silos between the departments is really helpful for all of us as far as sharing best practices and iterating and getting those really rich ideas and innovation across the system.
Merci. I'm also curious about your thoughts with GC Exchange. It's another new platform for public servants. What do you think about that? Will you have your resources there? Will you keep it like available externally? How you choose your platform? Because there are so many platforms.
So we actually have been working with GC Exchange for quite a while. We have regular bilets with them where we've been talking about, obviously the Federal Youth Network is probably an early adopter of a lot of the different technologies. And what's interesting when we're looking at the GC Exchange is that you have to be on the network to use it. And that was our key hesitation when we were looking at using it versus not using it, because we're always conscious of who our audience is. And so it depends on when in your career you would be using the things that we're posting, where we should be posting them. And that's a discussion that, of course, we're still having. So, comme pour toi, Adrienne, comme président pour les étudiants, s'il y a des étudiants qui veulent avoir accès à nos produits, ils peuvent pas si c'est sur GC Exchange, parce qu'il faut que vous avez un Pride et un Mikey et vous êtes sur le réseau avec un ordi dédié au système pour avoir accès. Mais Si c'est Marcella qui veut partager des cours de leadership, ben, si c'est juste pour des fonctionnaires, c'est correct d'utiliser GC Exchange. Alors, ça dépend vraiment du public cible pour le produit. Et nous autres, au Réseau des jeunes fonctionnaires fédéraux, on discute encore c'est quoi qu'on va utiliser pour GC Exchange, comme quel produit qu'on va mettre là et quels produits qui vont rester complètement ouverts.
Merci, Jen. Merci, merci. Je regarde les questions préparées. Je regarde aussi les questions des participants. If it's okay with you, I will go in the participant question. I will look at the participant question. I see one question is, do you have one place where I can search for all resources, including video? Like typing a keyword in the search bar and all your content that related to the keyword pop up.
The answer is no.
No.
Let's be honest. Let's be honest. Whoops, am I starting a video? Yeah, I went on YouTube. You probably don't hear that. Sorry, too many sounds in my ear. So two things. The answer is no, but I'll put a bit of a yes in the answer. I think it's part of working in the open and working on the platform that are given to us. So the GC Wiki might not be the friendliest of all the platform, but I'll still share a few tricks of the trade for GC Wiki. So let me share my screen here and I can show a couple of things, and then Marcella and Jen, you can add if there's other tricks that you want to show. Where's Wiki? There we go. Just go here. So let's be honest that there is a search bar. First of all, so to answer your question, yes, there is a search bar on the GC Wiki. It's not Google. Sometimes you'll put keyword, you'll find the right thing. Sometimes it won't work. So for GC Wiki in general, for our page in general, we've tried to simplify it with the new platform. So to put all of our resources together, all our events together, in those two main tabs that you'll find in the new way to navigate it. Where there's a better maybe a search bar that is available to you is if you click the little YouTube button, you go on YouTube.
That's how most people are looking at things. I think that's a really good
actually
point that we need to start considering.
Channel there on YouTube. Oh my God.
We'll go on to our.
You hear my sound, huh? People talking over
better.
Me. That's way better. Sorry about that. So you can actually, there's a little search bar that will search just our YouTube channel. So at least for the video, it should be a little bit more friendly. If you put, for example, resume, you want to improve your resume. Well, as you can see, there's different video, including one that was just recorded 2 months ago during Career Bootcamp about resume. So there's not a magic button, but there's a couple of places that can help you. I don't know, Jen, Marcella, anything else?
The one thing that I do is if I'll go into like virtual learning series page and I just do Control F and then, yeah. And so that's kind of like the easiest way that I use that, and the same can be done in the Career Bootcamp pages as well. So that's probably the easiest way, but it's definitely great feedback to get, right? And something to that maybe Alexa can look into, how can we build better functionality around those pieces? So great question.
Marcella, I have a question for you. Have you ever had things go wrong and how did you handle it? Like, what did you learn from this kind of experience?
Like, I've had many things go wrong. So, and so if we're talking about the virtual learning series, or are we talking about career journey? What do you think?
Let's see the virtual learning series.
Yeah, so in the virtual learning series, I've had one of the early sessions, partnerships that we did was with the Public Service Pride Network. And we did a Zoom session, and I was so excited to be working with them. I shared the link in Twitter, which the first one went fine, but then I guess these people who troll social media for these opportunities to Zoom bomb your, so it went awful. It was the first time I had experienced that level of actual hate, and like there was racist comments, homophobic comments. It was horrible. And then they were sharing images because it was a meeting. So that was quite traumatic, and I felt bad for everybody who attended. So that was a huge mistake. And so then we built in kind of security measures around, okay, how are we going to, if we have these in the future, what are we doing, right? So we then started building registration page, using that, you know, we had your email now. So we just kind of built those security measures around, and yeah, we learned from that. You know, we improved the virtual learning series as it went every single time. Like I can't imagine it from the original to what it was at the end, which the scenario note was like a thing of beauty, where it was all the information was on the scenario note that you needed. So we were constantly improving, not necessarily from things that went wrong, but also from things that we just knew we could do better in, and to provide a better kind of experience for our panelists even. That's what we were always looking at it from different points of view, not just from the panelist point of view, but also from the attendee point of view, also from the, like I said, you know, we were always keeping in mind a new public servant, a young public servant, a mid-career public servant, you know, people who were looking for different topics to come out of the VLS and career bootcamp. Jen?
I think that particular day taught us a lot. We thought that we had a lot of things happen and that we had learned a lot of lessons. And then when that happened, we were like, oh, okay. But to be honest, when that situation happened, Marcella handled it quickly. She handled it professionally. And it's something that now, and I know since then she has done it many times, and even still now, when we're dealing with partners who are launching an event or launching a conference or doing anything virtually, we have that in the back of our minds, like that's the worst case scenario. So how can you prevent that from happening? And how can you ensure that the link stays in the GC? How can you ensure that the participants don't have access to share things that you don't want them to share? And that wasn't something that came in our instructor's manual when we first started figuring out how to do the virtual learning series. That's something that had to happen in order for us to even think that it could happen, and then to share with our colleagues. And that's why working in the open this way is so important, is that I just the other day spoke to someone about having an online event, and I said, well, where are you going to share that link? Don't share that link online, because let me tell you what happens when you share the link online, which is why all of you who are here today had to go through the registration system. It's not necessary. I mean, we do love the data, don't get me wrong. We do like to collect our data and know who has attended and from which departments and which regions. So thank you for filling it out. But really, it's a way for us to ensure that we can check who's coming and going, and that extra step is there to avoid having trolls bombing sessions and things like that, because that is possible. But we wouldn't have known if it didn't happen to us. So it was bad at the time, but it's good that it did happen.
Merci Marcella et Jennifer. I have a question for you, Marcella, again. I would like to know how, like, for example, how can I start working in the open, and how FYN can help me with this?
Well, I think that Jen's kind of really said it all, right? Like, check out the digital standards. I believe, you know, we've been dropping the links in the chat space. I think we have content, YouTube content with people who are working with those digital standards. You know, the digital bus rides was one of our first virtual learning series events that we did, where we talked about, what I believe was with Rebecca Nava at the time, around some of those digital standards. We had Issa David talking to us. What does that include, right? Because and digital standards might be something new to you. So take a look at that. And when we first started, it was really just even the tools that we were using, right? You know, with the Federal Youth Network, we use Google Docs, we use the Slack channel. I know GC Students is the Slack channel, because you want to keep people engaged in the different ways that people are engaging today. Not in my time when it was like that little Motorola phone that you couldn't text or do anything with. It's now, today, right? We're trying to keep engaged with the audience and with public service. So make sure to use FYN and leverage what you can learn from that VLS and from the career boot camp. And those are the ways, to me, that you can start working in the open. And like we've said, take that content and make it your own and share it.
Merci, Marcella. Je sais, Marc-André, je te laisse la parole 2 petites secondes. Marc-André, c'est des questions rapides, réponses rapides.
Oui, en fait, je voulais ajouter à 2 questions qui ont été posées précédemment. Il y a une personne qui demandait, puis je sais que Haley fait du beau travail à répondre à l'écrit aussi, puis qui parlait, qui disait « Je cherche de l'aide professionnelle pour ma carrière, un mentor, etc. » On va l'adresser dans 2 semaines dans la prochaine session du Virtual Learning Series. Mais aussi, mon conseil, 2 secondes rapides, demandez à quelqu'un. Allez sur LinkedIn, allez sur Twitter, trouvez quelqu'un qui vous intéresse, envoyez-leur un email, puis dites, avez-vous 10 minutes pour moi pour prendre un café, puis qui sait qu'est-ce qui pourrait en sortir. So, don't be shy. La pire chose qui peut vous arriver, c'est que quelqu'un va vous dire non. So, puis aussi, brièvement, je me permets, si tu, Audrienne, the last question we have there, if I may answer it too, or I'll take a crack at it. So the last question we have is, what are tips for new public servant? How can one best leverage our FYN ecosystem? First of all, the best tip, you found it, you're here today. You found us in the sense that it's not every public servant, unfortunately, that we found. So share it with your colleague, first of all. That will help us. It will help them. But, you know, connecting through those network is probably the first tip that I would give. And you're on the right path for whoever asked that question. And second of all, just leverage your learning plan. That's my personal tip. It's not everywhere. I'm new to the public service. So to have a learning plan, to have time that is allocated through your job to learn, it's not something that you see quite commonly in the private sector. So leverage it, use it, and try to develop yourself. Is it true to FYN ecosystem? Yes, probably, maybe. That's up to you, depending on what you want to learn. Or is it elsewhere? But use that valuable time.
Merci, Marc-André. Je pense qu'on va finir avec cette question-là. Je vais poser la question à Marcella et Jennifer. What will be your top tip for new public servant, and how can one best leverage the Federal Youth Network ecosystem to develop professionally? Marcella, Jen, je vous laisse les derniers mots de la fin.
Kind of what Marc-André spoke to, get on Twitter, get on LinkedIn. It sounds so ridiculous, maybe to you as it did to me 3 years ago before FYN. I joined Twitter, it was the best thing. Networking can happen just like by going to different types of meetings and participating in that meeting, turning your camera on or not, but you know, unmuting and voicing your opinion. It's okay. There is not necessarily, it's not a conversation about right or wrong opinions. It's just engaging in that conversation. So get on Twitter and join some of those network conversations that are going on, and then be brave, unmute, and share.
Moi, je dirais accepter les défis que Marcella vous a lancés. So check out what Marcella said to do, set some goals for yourself. These have been really, the last couple of years have been hard on all of us. So if your head is in the not in the right space right now, and if your mental health is kind of not at its best, and now is not the time for you, that's okay too, because the way we've built the ecosystem is that it's going to be here. So if in 6 months' time you say, okay, I saw that session and I'm going to do it. Now I'm going to do it. It's going to be there for you then. And we've tried to make it as accessible as possible for you to be able to find what you're looking for it all to kind of be in the same place. You may have to use the F function to define some stuff, but you don't have to do it today. But starting today will make it easier for you in that 6 months' time, because anything is possible. We're all one enterprise, and your career is whatever you want it to be. And these tools will be there for you along the way, and the Federal Youth Network will be as well.
Merci mille fois, Marcella, Marc-André et Jen. Moi, je peux dire que je suis la première qui vit les effets du réseau des jeunes fonctionnaires fédéraux. Je vous en remercie beaucoup. Je vous remercie à tout le monde d'avoir été présent aujourd'hui. Thank you for joining us today. Be sure to sign up for the next event. Assurez-vous de vous inscrire au prochain événement du réseau des jeunes fonctionnaires fédéraux. Merci mille fois à tout le monde, puis à la prochaine.